left, right.
Welcome to the latest episode of SipTalk. Today we are talking about traditions, specifically the traditions that nobody wants to be doing anymore. It's a fun episode. I think you will agree with us for quite a few of these. Some of them you may not. Let me know in the comments what tradition you'd like to see go away forever. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
Where's this going?
Cheers.
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 All right, we are live. This is Sip Talk. My name is Justin DiGiulio out of my basement in New Jersey, joined by James, the Boswell, philosopher, philanderer, philanthropist, physician, doctor, MD in many a trade. This man is well versed. He's joining us today from sunny South Carolina. James, how's it hanging down there?
Things are good, dude. April in Charleston is like tied for the best month of the year.
You think
I know
so?
it's not April yet, but I'm considering it to be.
Well, it's basically it. But I told somebody today it was below this morning, and I think it was just a long freezing kind of all day long in Manhattan. I don't know about New Jersey, but it was freaking freezing all day. I told somebody, isn't March supposed to be in like a lion, out like a lamb? And the beginning of March was actually pretty warm around here. So literally this year, the complete reverse. We do have confirmation that we are live again on Instagram, which is great news because we were bumped off for saying things about coronavirus drugs. We're not going to talk about that today, so we don't get kicked off. We actually literally said
You know what though? We should really start a pool. Like we should have a couple different like gambling profiles. One, how long until our next ban on, and then name a platform. So
Yeah.
how long do we last on Instagram? How long do we last on TikTok before we get banned again?
If you're watching us, just do me a favor and tap the like button and not the thumbs down button because we're sick of that shit, man, and we're working really hard to stay on the air and drink in front of you. So speaking of which, I'm opening a drink. What are you drinking today, James?
I have a Miller Lite. Last time I went to the grocery store, they were out of Busch Ice,
Ooh.
and then in my disappointment at them not having the beer that I wanted, I didn't buy any beer at all. So I'm drinking a beer that one of my friends brought over while we were playing some pool. He left a beer for me behind for me, which was very kind of him, and that's what I'm drinking.
You left one beer behind. Very, very generous fella. I want to say
Jeff May says, "Is it possible to ban the woke?"
So
well, sleep deprivation is a problem for everybody. I don't think we should ban that.
Today's topic is traditions that should go away. And I have some more bullshitting around to do, but I think we should just get right into it. I think the cool thing about this topic is there are some traditions that are very much silly traditions that should go away. And then there are some traditions that are like really malicious and really bad and just a burden on society. And we're going to hit some of those as well. So that I really like the versatility of this topic and really the spectrum of things that we're going to cover. Unfortunately, our list is in no particular order. So we're going to be bouncing around.
Well, and you've got your list and I've got my list, and there's like we both came up with them independently, and there's considerable overlap.
Yeah, I tried to. So we do a shared Google Doc with our ideas, and I tried to tab mine down to the second and third page in hopes that you wouldn't even notice.
I didn't until the very end.
And
then once I noticed, I'm not reading these. I'm just going to keep on going with mine.
Yeah, no, I think it's nice to have kind of an unbiased opinion. Jeff and May does say, "Is it possible to ban the woke?" I'm almost all for that, but
no, that's incredibly stupid. Like, first of all, there's
hang on, hear me out. Let me finish. If you guys are watching this episode and you're thinking about traditions that you could probably live without or that you think should go away, not that being woke is a tradition, but let us know what you'd like to see that is a tradition that should disappear. James, I will let you lead with your first one there.
All right. Number one tradition for me that needs to go away. The expectation that a wedding ring should cost 3 months' salary.
So this is a pretty. So I recently learned where that comes from. Do you know where that's grounded? That a wedding, when you buy an engagement ring, it should be 3 months' salary.
De Beers advertisement.
So there was an ad in a magazine ad in the 80s, and the magazine was somebody getting engaged, and it said the best way to make 3 months' salary last a lifetime, or something to that effect.
Okay.
And from there on, it was just carried that should be the value of a wedding ring is the man's 3 months of salary.
So I have a couple thoughts on this one. First is like I cannot believe. First of all, it's advertising by De Beers, like the biggest diamond company in the world. Now, what I can't understand is like most companies when they advertise, they try and keep like their profit motive kind of hidden. Where like we know that the company's trying to make money off of us and they want us to buy their products and everything, but they don't just come out and say you should spend more money with us, and that's basically what that advertisement did. And like the analogy that I draw is like so basically the De Beers advertisement is Diamond Company says you should be spending more money on diamonds, and the analogy that I have in my mind is like imagine an Exxon Mobil print ad that has a picture of a giant diesel truck belching out a huge cloud of black smoke, and it says Exxon Mobil. Like, do you think that advertisement would play even remotely well today?
Well, so I don't know if you can see. I've got a few books back here, mid-century ads, and then I've got 1970s ads, 1980s. I got 1960s up in the living room right now, and I'm just looking at all these old mid-Americana advertisements, all in print, and they're fucking awesome. Because yeah, it does seem obnoxious when you look at it that way, but back then they got away with so much more. One of the ads I saw was for a small Honda, saying like women shouldn't just drive any car; they should drive a car made for women. And it's just like this.
Yeah, that's the thing is that's different though, because that's just appealing to like a base. Like the De Beers advertisement is so brazen of just spend more money on our shit and use more of our stuff. And
moving on.
Is, like, no, like, I'm just blown away that people fell for it. Like, why did the guys be like, "Oh, that sounds like a good idea"?
Because that's what is expected.
And yeah, and it needs
somebody's
to go away.
So let me tell you something. For the same reason, if you come home on Valentine's Day without some form of chocolate and something with flowers in it, you lose. And
all right, next tradition: get rid of Valentine's Day. I have never had a relationship get better after a Valentine's Day.
That's the thing about. So that's actually Valentine's Day may not be on my list.
Well, it is now.
But I'll lead. We can hit Valentine's Day, and then I'll lead into to letter S on my list.
Hold on, I'm not done yet because
we got a long list, James.
No. I got to respond to something that Rosh said because like it's also something that my roommate said. Where Rosh says like if the guys cave in and go cheap, they lose the wife, and like my roommate said, well, like what if the girl says, oh, like you only spent $1,000 on the ring? Like is that all I'm worth to you? And my answer would be yes. Like how about we spend that money on something that's actually useful?
All right. So Valentine's Day, the Valentine's Day tradition, I think that's a really one to make evaporate because it seems like it's here and it's not going anywhere for a while. But that would be one, the tradition that you have to have some form of flour and some form of chocolate. And if you don't, you're a total piece of shit.
And a card and a date.
Oh, and a card and somewhere to go. Yeah. Which is, and it's only one way. It's only on the guy to the woman. And you know, we may have, just spoiler alert, we might have some gender role situations further on in the list here. But
Justin, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
And I'm paraphrasing a stand-up comedian, Jim Jeffries, but Have you ever heard a guy say, "Ooh, Valentine's Day is coming up. I can't wait."
Exactly. Yeah, Valentine's Day from the male perspective is a women. Of course, they don't mind, and they're probably not as against it as men are. But it's a lose only opportunity for men. Like if you hit the mark bullseye, you've just met expectations. Right.
It's a lose tie.
All right. So on top of Valentine's Day, I also have any of the bullshit national holidays: National Hot Dog Day, National Margarita Day,
Yeah, but
National
nobody
Twins
actually
Day.
celebrates those.
No, some people do. I just
Who?
think they're silly. But the tradition isn't so much that we make them go away. But what bothers me specifically about those holidays is the tradition that we have of just turning anything and giving it its own day.
Well,
I
don't
think
you dare take away my Taco Tuesday.
there's no national taco day. I admit, probably there is National Tacos Day.
Well, it's Tuesday.
But that's would be every Tuesday.
Yeah.
All right, let's hit back to
I,
your list here.
I wasn't. I didn't know you didn't get the memo.
I like a little Taco Tuesday, except the problem is if I'm having a taco, I'm also having a margarita or some other form of vehicle for tequila, and I really don't need that shit fucking every Tuesday. So put a little distance between me and Taco Tuesday. You want to hit number 2 on your list here?
No, I want to stick on
Oh.
weddings. Let's just flesh out the. Let's just get all the wedding stuff out now.
I don't. We got to skip around because I don't know what I have on weddings. I don't know what you have on weddings.
I do know what I have on
All right,
weddings.
why don't we hit our list extra quickly so we can get to the things that you want to talk about on weddings, so we don't spend too much time on one topic. And your number 2 here is good, and it is a parallel to wedding here.
Yeah, kind of. And like the tradition of like virginity having value. That like there's a a trait that you can have that is virginity, which is just stupid to me. Like, if you don't want to have sex, fine, that's your choice. Like, don't do it until you want to. But like, being a virgin or not being a virgin, neither of those have any intrinsic value.
I think the sacredness of virginity is something that we could probably drop. I don't think valuing virginity as a sacred thing has any role in the modern world.
Yeah. And this is not to say like people should or shouldn't like change the way that they approach sex. I'm just saying that the way that we as a society treat virginity as like this kind of ineffable goodness.
All right, let's move on here. I didn't even get to my first one here, the singing happy birthday. So I watched enough people being sung happy birthday to. It does not, to me, look like they enjoy it. I'm sure there's a select few number of people who really love that just attention in your face of literally everybody around you is looking at you and yelling and singing happy birthday. Some people may like that, but the vast majority of people I see having happy birthday sung to them are not enjoying it. Additionally, the vast majority of people that have to stand up and go, happy birthday to you, nobody enjoys doing that either. And of course, there are your select few, but I would say in mass, the majority of people, no one enjoys singing or being sung happy birthday to.
I will tell you, when I was in college, we would do this a couple times. If I was out
with this.
if we were out to dinner somewhere, like a bunch of my friends, like sometimes we would just start singing happy birthday to one person at the table. It didn't matter if their birthday was 6 months out. We would just start singing happy birthday to them.
At least you'll get a free dessert. I want to touch on one TikTok comment from Herb Lord. Herb Lord said, "You're talking about me, and I'm 20." So I don't know which one of these they were talking about, happy birthday song or 3-month salary, but I'm just going to assume it's virginity.
And all I'm saying is that there's nothing good or bad about it. It just is.
I'm just
Maria says hi.
Hello, Maria. James, you want to hit your number 3?
Yo, this one. So, like, the bris ceremony in Judaism.
So, for those of you who don't know what a bris ceremony is, it is a ceremonious circumcision.
Yeah, it's like a circumcision performed by the rabbi, and in the most traditional way it's performed, like the rabbi will make the cuts with like a knife or something, but then he actually like removes the skin with his mouth.
Yeah, that's
So there's been a few times where like the baby has like developed an infection and died from it, but also even if that like the baby doesn't get like an infection from it, think about how weird that is.
well,
And not only to have the rabbi do that, but also to have like a whole bunch of people. Like this is a public thing where like like friends and family are gathered around.
this just goes
And
to
like I'm not taking a position on circumcision because
well,
I
look,
think there's heavily mixed evidence
look,
on it. But
it just goes to show you that extreme religion is just back-ass word, especially in a modern society. And nobody in their right mind, under medical supervision, is performing a medical act where someone their skin is severed, right, with their mouth. Okay, let alone with unwashed hands. Okay,
right.
second of all, we're not talking about circumcision because there are medical benefits, and there's two different sides of circumcision. We're not talking about circumcision, and you
Yeah,
can
and I don't want to take a
on that.
stance on it because like I think there's mixed evidence as to whether or not it's a good thing. But that's for a medical circumcision. The bris ceremony is just all kinds of screwed up.
The bristle, yeah, that's and don't they? The foreskin is saved and put into a on a ball of other foreskins, right?
I don't know what's done with it. It's saved, but I don't know like if it's
Well, I
like
don't,
given back to the family or I like I don't want to have conjecture here. Like
well,
I want to talk about the parts of the ceremony that I do know that are messed up enough.
fair enough. I don't know the ball situation. I shouldn't have said it because I'm not familiar with it. But I will give you one more. I'm going to skip further down on my list, and that is the tradition of eating the placenta. So, for those
What?
who aren't familiar with this, some women, I think somebody told me today when I was going through my list that Kim Kardashian actually did this, and it wasn't hers. So I don't
That's
know, man. I'd have to look that shit up. Ross, you can look that up. But what the placenta is like the kind of sac that the baby's in inside of the mother's body.
no, the placenta is like
Okay, sorry.
kind of like a fleshy attachment to the uterus
Yeah.
where like the umbilical cord attaches to the uterus
Okay, so that's
and then that's where like the baby draws its nutrients from the mother while it's developing.
my excuse me. Sorry. But that comes out at birth, and some women, not certainly not all, save this, and some of them eat it. So
That's
that's a weird tradition. Look it up. Not not a tradition I am familiar with, but in my googling of traditions, that was certainly an odd one, and I think we could probably get rid of that one.
yeah, I think that one needs to go away.
So your number 4 on your list is also on my list. You want to share that one?
The Electoral College.
Is anyone in favor of the Electoral College?
Yes, lots.
Really? And what's their rationale?
Well, from from a purely I can't think of the word. If you're concerned with retaining power and you have less, like the conservatives like the electoral college because it makes certain states overrepresented in the presidential voting because congressional districts are done by population, but Senate is not, and the electoral college is Senate plus number of House seats
Yeah.
is the number of electoral college votes. So you could have a state like Wyoming that has like 500,000 people in the entire state get 3 electoral college votes, and then a state like California where like Wyoming is just like a suburb of LA. And it makes it so that some states the voters in one state might have per voter more electoral representatives than other states. And
And
so
the Electoral College is the reason why we see presidents lose, which what we've seen recently is presidents lose the popular vote, meaning the majority of people vote against that president, but win the Electoral College vote. So because they have this extra representation, that they actually win the presidency.
well, and it also leads to campaigns where the candidates focus on a handful of states because you can look at a state like, and I'll stick with Wyoming and California. Wyoming votes heavily Republican, and California votes heavily Democratic, and so there's not really anything that the candidate needs to do to change voters' minds in either of those two states because it's already a foregone conclusion as to which direction they're voting. And so you see where the candidates end up focusing on only the states where the expected vote is going to be really close. And so that would be like Ohio is always in the mix, but it's like Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, now Georgia, Arizona, North Carolina. So it makes it so that a large portion of the country doesn't really get to participate in the election in a meaningful way of engaging with the candidate and engaging with the campaign. And also, if you live in one of these states where the vote is heavily skewed one way or the other. So, for example, I live in South Carolina, which votes Republican pretty reliably. And if I vote for a Democrat, it's not really changing anything on the national election level.
It has no.
And
And
if you're a Republican in California, your vote's not really doing anything either. And so it's just like you if it were a popular vote, then my vote would matter. But because it's the Electoral College, my vote in South Carolina doesn't really matter very much.
I think that's another way to look at it. That because of the Electoral College, where you are, your vote may literally not count at all. So let's move on. Let's get off of the politics. Maybe we will return.
Oh, we're going to return to it.
My number C, Christmas trees. So I actually like the tradition of Christmas trees. However, I was doing a little research on traditions and the number of people's houses that burn down because their dry ass Christmas tree lights on fire.
Because they've got hot lights in
because
dry timber.
Yeah, I mean, most of the new Christmas tree lights are LED lights. But if you put your Christmas tree up in fucking October, which so many people are doing now, putting their Christmas trees up super early, and it's real. And I will tell you, I see like plant shops and Home Depot and just other people throwing up real live, fresh cut down Christmas trees up well before Thanksgiving. And if you get your Christmas tree sometime in November, let alone October, because we can seem to be celebrating Christmas earlier and earlier every year.
Quarantine Christmas to the month of December, please.
I think it should just be post Thanksgiving and until Christmas, and then you can carry through New Year's. Sure.
Yeah, like I'd like to congratulate Christmas for winning the war on Christmas. Not only has it won the war, it's decided that like it's going to stage an invasion.
So Christmas trees, unfortunately, are a tradition that brings a lot of danger into the home, and especially if you are putting up a live Christmas tree that will soon be dead so early from Christmas. All right, you want to hit letter number 5?
Yeah, letter 5. Not prosecuting a sitting president. So this was really relevant back in like when Trump was getting investigated for various things that he did while he was in office, mostly about like obstruction of justice and like the Russian influences on his campaign and stuff like that. And like in the Mueller report, he talked about how the standing policy is that a sitting president will not be prosecuted. And that just seems really stupid. Like if you have and the idea being that you have impeachment as a process to remove the president and then you could prosecute him once he's no longer president. But impeachment is a political process, not a legal process. And like if you have someone that you think is committing crimes, launch an investigation, make an indictment, and let them go to trial and have a legal trial. Because the impeachment trial in the Senate is not a legal trial. It's a political trial.
No,
the standards of evidence and everything else are completely different. Have a legal trial. And if the guy is not guilty, then that'll be found out in court.
I think the argument for not prosecuting a sitting president is that it takes away from his time to preside over the country.
I would say if you're deciding that you're going to prosecute a case against a sitting president, you've probably got a really good reason for doing so. I don't think it's going to be done lightly. And I would say if you get to the point where you need to prosecute a sitting president, maybe taking his time away from things isn't the worst thing.
I think we're seeing a lot more kind of BS being thrown at the wall and sticking. And I think that it's a bit of a slippery slope. I don't know how I feel about this one, but I definitely think it's a good one for the docket of traditions to eliminate. All right, let me.
Quick D Love says they don't give a shit about us. I'm not sure what that's about. Maybe the electoral college and political candidates.
Probably. Let me hit letter number 4. Running of the bulls. So, this was something I was like, oh, you get a bunch of stupid people that are going to go run up and down the streets ahead of a group of bulls. Like, if this is what they want to do, let them. And people die often during the running of the bulls. So, if we're going to let dumb people line up and put themselves in harm's way, like, who are we to stop them? But then I was like, oh, maybe for the sake of the bulls, we could stop.
Well, I think
it was really
you're missing
bad.
the other half of the story as to what happens in the running of the bulls.
Well, what am I missing? Because I watched a bunch of videos last night, and
so
it looked like a bunch of idiots.
Okay, so
bored.
this tags into letter number 10 of my list, which is bullfighting. So the running of the bulls is like the prelude to a bullfighting event. So like they let the bulls out a couple blocks away from the Coliseum, and people will be in the streets like running with them. But eventually the bulls and the people that are still ambulatory make it into the stadium, at which point the bullfight begins. And bullfighting is just straight up cruelty to an animal.
Yeah.
Because there's two types of bullfighting. Like the traditional type, which is the one that I'm against, is like where they're going to be killing the bull in the Coliseum, and like you've got the bullfighter, and like they're throwing like kind of like harpoons into the back of the bull to like hurt it and weaken it, and the goal is to take a saber and land the saber just behind the head of the bull and get the saber to go down the spine of the bull and kill it. But that's really hard to do. So a lot of times they just end up stabbing the crap out of the bull. So you just got this animal in like a confined space getting stabbed repeatedly. It's just like if you're going to slaughter the animal, like do it humanely, and bullfighting is absolutely not the way to do it. Now you've got the other like artistic bullfighting where they don't harm the bull and the bull just kind of runs around. You have the cape and you dodge it, and then like you let the bull out or whatever. I don't think there's much of an issue with that because you're not harming the bull.
I think the inhumanity of you're really causing a lot of pain to an animal as a spectacle, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of the most fucked up part about it.
But the running of the bulls is the prelude to the bullfight. Now it's only done like once a year, like but they have bullfights all the time. But like the running of the bulls is like they get these bulls riled up and then they charge down the street and and you want to talk about like you want to take the risk of running with the bulls and like take and risk getting killed yourself. Like okay, fine, but that's not the end of the story.
Next up, actually, just parallel to bullfighting is cockfighting.
Yeah.
I think is that on your list? It's not on my list.
No, it didn't make my list, but like cockfighting and like dog fighting, like any of these cruelty to animal things.
I mean, it seems like a tradition that is just something that's so far gone, but
cockfighting is still very real, and so is dog fighting.
I suppose it's happening somewhere. I mean, it's
in Latin America, cockfighting is still very popular. It's underground mostly because in most places it's illegal, but it still happens. And in the same way in the United States, like dog fighting is still very much a thing. Even if it's illegal, people still do it, and both are wrong.
Next up, I got pardoning. Speaking of birds, I figure we'll just go there quick. Pardoning of the turkey by the president on Thanksgiving. Now that's a televised tradition that to me, I am just really curious what happens to that turkey after he goes back to the farm, because I
have no idea.
Much turkey farms serve to do much more than just produce turkeys to be eaten. And the way that we grow turkeys, I also imagine makes it very difficult for them to live decent lives because they are just giant blobs of of meat. And I imagine that a wild turkey, well, I can tell you a wild turkey is nowhere near the size of a farm-raised turkey. And I just imagine that this turkey's probably getting eaten by someone anyways. I think it's just pure ceremony.
Yeah,
And
I actually like it though
ceremony.
because it's utterly absurd. Like it's just hilarious to look at like the president on the White House lawn with a freaking turkey there talking to the turkey. Like,
Well,
you know what? I have no problem with like the president having to go through some ritual humiliation. This is not embarrassing for the bird. This is embarrassing for the president. And for that reason, I'm all for it.
I also saw a lot of people saying that the tradition of Groundhog's Day should go away, but
I
I
like it for the same reason. It's utterly absurd.
it's absurd. And Groundhog's Day was one I was like, I actually like ground. I don't give a shit so much about the parting of the turkey, but Groundhog's Day is one I really do like. All right,
I don't care about it. Like the movie's great,
movie.
but
Yeah, I'm
but
kind of
like any of these absurd things that people do, where you just like, if you look at a picture, if you were to take somebody from like another country and they had never heard of this, and be like, here's a picture of something that we do in this country, they'd just be like, what?
all right. What? Well, yeah. What do you got next here?
Speaking of other countries, the caste system in India.
Yeah, now is that a tradition or is that like in like really a deep part of their society? How would
Well, it's both.
I feel like it would be something that would be very difficult to just make go away.
Yes,
Like we
but
could just
we're
stop
not talking about, like,
televising. We could just
this is
stop
not
televising
practical
it.
advice. This is not SipTalk practical advice on how to end traditions. It's traditions that need to go away. We're not considering what like the ramifications of our actions. Like
I will agree though that the caste system in India is a
it
really
just leads to
lousy.
dehumanizing treatment of people.
Dehumanizing is definitely a great word when we're talking about the caste system. Um, what else do we have here? Let me hit.
Wait, I got one more that's somewhat related to India, and that's the
Okay.
British monarchy.
Yeah.
Like,
It's they're just in such bad shape right now.
yeah, that's the only good thing about them.
Oh my god, I'm so sick of hearing about Meghan and Kate and Harry. It's just it's a clusterfuck, and it's really a live soap opera for the people of Britain
Yeah,
too.
that costs them like millions and millions of dollars every year.
I don't
Like,
imagine they're profitable. I mean, maybe
no. The British government supports the monarchy, and the monarchy does nothing. Like they just mooch off the British government and live lives of complete opulence without contributing anything at all.
well, I mean,
Literally nothing.
they give the media something to talk about. So if that's probably their only contribution.
Okay, yeah, you can get that for a lot cheaper.
Rosh just added, speaking of India, and we were talking about the caste system, it's a country that respects cows more than human beings.
In some ways, and also BBC One, if you're listening and you want to spend like you want people to talk to, like Sip Talk is available at a very affordable price.
Next up, I have college hazing, which is so I was talking about college hazing today in my office, and somebody was like, "What is that?" And I didn't really want to get too graphic, but it's basically where
You see it most in fraternities and sororities.
you force these young college students, if they want to join the fraternity or sorority, to drink excessive amounts of alcohol
Or do other humiliating things.
but also do like weird shit, like rub their balls on people's foreheads or something. Just weird shit that's humiliating, and it's just silly. It's basically also
Sports teams do it too.
it's also almost dehumanizing, but it's just it's a bunch of young people trying to be silly and push the envelope in obnoxious ways, and it doesn't say much about anyone's character.
I think it's much worse than the way you're describing it. It's
Well,
more along the lines of, we are going to subject you to abuse if you want to join this organization. And the reason why we're going to do that is because we had to subject ourselves to abuse to join this organization. So we're just carrying on the tradition that hurts everybody.
isn't there like a monkeys and a ladder type scenario where there's like three monkeys in a room and there's a ladder with a hanging bunch of bananas on top of the ladder, and one monkey goes to climb up the ladder and he gets electrocuted, so he doesn't go up the ladder. And then another monkey goes up and he gets electrocuted, so he doesn't get up the ladder. And then the third monkey doesn't go up the ladder. And then they switch out the monkeys, so ultimately there's just a fresh batch of monkeys, but they've just been conditioned to not go up the ladder, even though the bananas are right there. I'm probably butchering whatever I'm talking about, but that's kind of the I'm doing this because it was done to me type scenario.
Yeah, it's a really poor justification. And you see it in sports teams. You see it in all sorts of organizations.
All right, hit your next one here. We got a lot more to go. We're running low on time. Toddler tossing. Oh, sorry.
What is toddler tossing?
So I happen to have, so I don't know what she means. Simply Property says toddler tossing. I don't know if she means what I'm thinking of, but this is another Indian tradition where they drop infants from several stories high onto a cloth below, which is held very tautly, basically like a trampoline. And supposedly no children have ever suffered serious injuries or died.
Oh, I'm sure that's the case.
Yeah, I'm sure too. Exactly. And it's supposed to toughen them up. But what I saw looked extremely, extremely fucking dangerous. And I could only imagine how many kids are actually seriously harmed.
I've never heard of this.
That's wild.
All right, my next one. And this will make a lot of friends for me. The expectation, the tradition that the man pays for everything on the first date.
I kind of like that one.
Why?
Because it's just simple and you don't have to do this fucking dance where you put in your credit card, you go for your wallet. It's just kind of known the guy's going to pay for it. That's traditional. And
yeah, but you justify it for some reason other than it's tradition.
It's simple. And you don't have to do this kind of theater of let me pretend to pay, or I don't want to pay, or having to have a discussion on the first date. Well, I got the fries, but you had a $7 drink, but I got the burger. I didn't have the cheese.
No.
Save me $2.
We're not arguing about go Dutch. You just do 50-50.
But that's not how. But nobody goes Dutch. The people that are concerned about the money are the people that are going to want to do this 50-50 and not the traditional way. And the people that want to do it 50-50 want to do 50-50 because they don't want to do 100 them and 0 the other. However, if you're pinching pennies where you don't want to do 100 you and 0 the other, you prefer to do 50-50, you're also probably saying, but you had 6 onion rings and I had 4. I don't think I should pay.
That's really stupid to do that.
But that's where it goes. I've been out to eat so many times where when it gets to discussing the bill, either one person pays it or it ends up being a discussion. At any time it ends up being a discussion, it always goes to the level.
No, I get that.
But onion rings and I had 4. I'm not paying for half the onion rings.
So Raj says if you don't want to spend money on a wedding ring, she might get it, but if you make her pay for her food, she might put that in her diary. Look, my whole thing is I'm not saying that you shouldn't pay for someone on a date. What I'm saying is that on a first date, I think that it creates some negative expectations on both parties because the man is paying for everything, and that's going to create this kind of tacit obligation of the woman.
Well, let me ask this to the viewers who are watching us right now. If you are a woman and you go on a date and the guy turns to you and says, that'll be $42.50. Do you want to put it on your card or are you paying it cash?
No. Hold on. So let me also state that if I'm going on a first date, I'm paying.
Okay.
But I'm saying that I don't like the dynamic that it creates.
I think it creates the simplest of the dynamic, though. And I mean, if there's a way to get out without paying or with paying less, I'd be all
think
for
about
it.
it from the woman's perspective, where if you go out on a date and if you don't want to have a second date, you're now going to kind of feel bad because he paid for everything, and you're going to feel kind of obligated to see him another time because he paid for everything. That's one scenario. The other is the date went well and you want to have a second date, and now he's not going to know whether you're actually interested in him or you just want another free meal.
I think the vast majority of women aren't going on dates for free meals. But also, if here that I happened, and again, maybe this could be a tradition that go away. This is gonna be my last 2 cents, and we can move on. But my thinking is that Sasha says if you ask someone out, then you should pay. Okay, that's one way to look at it. But here's what happens: the traditional way is the guy pays. Now, I can tell you as a guy, if the bill comes and the woman says, "I insist we split it," I know that there will be no second date. Because if she's insisting, she's like, "Oh shit, like I don't want to." This went poorly, so
I get it,
we're split.
and Kevin says that like the tradition that I should really be taking at issue here is the tradition that it's the guy who asks the girl out.
Yeah, again, that's another one of those things that's deeply ingrained in society, which we talked on a little bit in the last episode that was published, was the gender bomb. But that's some of your more traditional gender roles. Rosh goes, so ladies, if you want a second date, don't pay. All right, let's hit another one here on my list. Go quick. The annual hot dog eating contest. That's a tradition that's held on Coney Island, and there are others. There are other eating contests.
Competitive eating, just in general, is grotesque.
And that's where I was going with that. I don't think the world needs any more competitive eating situations.
Dimitri Martin has a good line. Like, competitive eating is really just like round 1 in a 2-round contest, because round 2 is the shitting contest. And I'm going to tell you, everybody loses.
All right, you want to hit your next one on here?
I got a couple on weddings.
Okay, hit that.
The bouquet and the garter toss.
Yeah, I mean, those are silly wedding traditions. Makes people uncomfortable sometimes.
The garter toss is weird, and like the bouquet toss is. I've seen some great videos. Like, one of my favorite videos is like there's a whole like the bunch of women are like standing waiting to toss the bouquet, and like the bouquet's up in the air, and this girl's like spotting getting ready to do it, and this guy swoops it and spikes it to the ground and runs away with his hands up in the air.
So for those who aren't familiar with this at all, which I don't know why you wouldn't be, I don't know, we're on TikTok, young people sometimes, but the bouquet toss means that the catcher of the bouquet is the next one to get married. So you see in movies and a lot of funny videos, the man not being very pleased about his excited girlfriend waiting to catch that bouquet, expecting to get engaged. That's just kind of the traditional perspective on that. Hit your next one here.
Bridesmaids being expected to like pay for their own dresses, and like they don't get a say as to what their dress is. So if the bride says like each of you, like, the dress that I picked out is $2,000, now each bridesmaid has to pay like $2,000 for a dress that they're gonna wear once.
Yeah, I suppose they have the option to say no. They would decline to be a bridesmaid, but there are a lot of crazy wedding traditions. Rosh brought this up earlier about the wedding dress. You're spending a couple $1,000s on a dress that would only be worn once.
Yep.
It's absolutely silly.
Yeah, that's another good one. Like the rehearsal dinner. Like when I was working in hotels, the restaurant in my hotel got bought out one night for a rehearsal dinner, and like so they took no outside guests. It was a private party, private function. They only had this rehearsal dinner, and that was it. And I was talking to the bar manager later on that night when he came to bring me his paperwork, and I was like, "What was going on over there?" He's like, "Yeah, rehearsal dinner." And I was like, "How much did that cost?" He was like, "About 30 grand." And I was like, "For one dinner?" He's like, "Yeah, this is $1 million wedding. Like, they don't need this is just a line item in their wedding."
Exactly.
He's like, that's so absurd to me. Like, $30,000 you can do so much with.
So I got another one about weddings is that it's expected that the bride's family pays for the wedding. Father of the Bride, I think, is a Steve Martin movie, funny Steve Martin movie. Now, obviously, as a guy, that sounds like a great tradition, but I still think it's a funny tradition. And actually, today, this day and age, most couples are splitting the cost, unless they come
Yeah,
from
it's
wealthy
stupid
families.
because it's basically just a continuation of like what marriage was 1,000 years ago, which was like a transfer of property.
True, fair enough.
Seriously, like it was, we're giving you our daughter, and we're also giving you a whole bunch of our shit. Like the dowry.
Mm-hmm.
And so the family of the bride paying is just a modern dowry.
Mm-hmm. All right, I got another one here, and that is actually Rasha's got
I don't want to talk about that one.
it's I'll bring it up, but there is a tradition where the night of the wedding, that because of course we talked about virginity before, that the man is supposed to send a blood-stained whatever item out of the bedroom to share that he has done the deed, and the new woman has lost her virginity.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's dumb for a whole
and,
bunch of
and then
reasons.
presumably both of them have lost their virginity, because in most traditional religions you're not supposed to have premarital sex. All right, next is on my list here is swearing on the Bible in court, or for swearing in presidents and things like that. And I just think that's a silly one, because
Well,
if you are going to court and you're not Christian, or you just happen to be a criminal, or you just happen to be someone who lies, the fact that they're telling you to swear on the Bible means absolutely nothing to you.
you're allowed to ask for to be sworn in on a copy of the U.S. Constitution.
No, I didn't. Maybe I've heard that before.
Yeah, you can request to not be sworn in on a Bible if you want.
Mm,
It's still a dumb tradition because like we shouldn't have religion in government, in my opinion.
yeah.
So it should just be swear on the Constitution as the default. But
Yeah, but I think that the tradition of it stems to the fact that, like, okay, you can lie to us, right? And we're telling you can't lie, but you're swearing you're not to on the Bible. So if you do lie, you're going to hell, and that's way worse than going to jail for a couple of years.
I mean, I was already going there. What's like add it to my tab, man?
Yeah, I mean, um,
Well, in terms, all right. So this is kind of along the same lines, like the Pledge of Allegiance in schools.
yeah, that to me it just sounds like a cult, listening to kids kind of recite something.
Yo,
Uh,
it's creepy.
it actually, like, being so far removed from it, when you witness it happen, it really seems so weird. It seems very cultish to me. That's my perspective. I think we could probably get rid of that one. I got another one for you. Is I think we definitely need to speed up daylight savings time. We've talked about dropping daylight savings time before.
Well, which one are we going with? Are we going with standard time or daylight savings time?
To be honest with you, I don't know what's what.
We're in daylight savings time right now.
We just entered daylight savings time.
Correct.
Okay, so that means that it would still be dark later into the evenings.
Yeah,
If we
standard time, the sun sets earlier.
mm, interesting. So a lot of people hate daylight savings time. I just think they hate losing the hour in the springtime. I think everybody likes getting the extra hour in the fall time, but I also like the fact that it gets darker earlier in the wintertime and stays brighter later in the summertime. I mean, to me, that's kind of something that's ingrained into my life and my memories, and I like
Hey,
being able to be outside in the summertime at 9 o'clock at night and it's still bright outside.
you should move to Iceland.
I was going to say there's parts of the world where the sun either doesn't set or sets very, very late at night and rises very, very early in the morning in the summer. And
And
then,
then you don't see the sun for like 4
yeah,
months.
I was in Sweden once in around Christmas time, which is basically like when their days are the shortest. And there was like two or three. I could be exaggerating. I don't know, but I just remember thinking like shortly after the sun came up, the sun was setting, and it was the weirdest thing. It was just not. My only memory of being in Sweden is just nighttime. Like I can't actually remember being there during the daytime. So, what do you want to hit next here?
I'm just thinking like if you're an ugly person, like you should have like a routine where like you just travel the world to like the places where it's dark most of the time.
Spent a lot of time in the extreme hemispheres there.
Yeah, but
Uh,
like yeah, the solstice periods are not your friend.
um,
Or no, yeah.
depending, hit the next one here.
Black Friday.
Um, yeah, that's on my list too. I think I have Black Friday and Cyber Monday. I
Cyber Monday is less of a problem for me because like all you are doing is like sitting at home and clicking on shit. Whereas with Black Friday, like seeing the people stampeding stores and like having retail workers expected to show up to their job at 5 a.m.
I do think it's cool to have a day where there are extreme sales, but there's two sides of this. One, people are going crazy and stomping on each other's skulls to get some stupid TV.
People have been like, I've seen pictures of people wearing cleats into stores.
Yeah, it's insane. Fucking body armor and shit, so they don't get beat up. And then the other side of it is Black Friday sales now happen on other days that aren't fucking Black Friday. So it's
talk to
just a
anybody who
tradition.
works in retail; they'll tell you that like Black Friday is an apocalyptic event for them.
It's just there's nothing good about this tradition. At its best, it was a day where there were good sales. Second to that, it was a day where there was great sales and people fought and hurt each other. And kind of third to that is it was a day where there were good sales and people fought and hurt each other, and it sucked to work. And that day now is several days. So,
well, by making it several days, it actually makes it better because like you
well,
don't have the crush
arguably,
of people trying to get these deals.
but the stores still do like that influx, and they play games like this starts on sale at 4 o'clock or something.
Yeah, which that's
they
bullshit.
They just amp it up. All right, let me hit another one here. We touched on this. We talked about Christmas trees. Is Christmas moving early? It seems almost to be traditional that every year Christmas seems to be starting earlier and earlier, and it can be like it's like back to school and some like Halloween shit, and then as soon as the back to school stuff ends, it's Halloween and Christmas. Like the fact that
Christmas has breached quarantine, man.
The fact that Christmas is now encroaching on like back to school shit, right? Like it literally goes back to school, and then they move the Halloween stuff to the back to school section, and they move the Christmas stuff into the Halloween section simultaneously. So now Christmas is literally bordering with back to school, which is fucking September and August.
Yeah, we're on like approaching an unironic Christmas in July.
All right. I wanted to get that one out quick, and then I wanted to add tipping. The tradition in the U.S. of tipping. Now, I'm all for tipping because you need to tip because if you're going to a restaurant in the United States, those people rely on tipping, so you ought to tip. The thing is, it's still fucked up that they rely on tipping, and you have to add another 25% to whatever your tab is.
It's stupid that you're having the guests subsidize the business's refusal to pay a living wage to its employees, and it also makes it so that your servers or bartenders or whatever, their pay is really up to the whims of the customer.
Well, yeah, 100%. But also the fact that a lot of this just shows you the state of our economy, how it's literally held together with chewing gum and paper clips or whatever that saying is. But most restaurants don't fucking make that much money.
No,
so, especially in New York City where the rents are really high. So a lot of these restaurants actually can't even afford to pay their people a living wage.
Well, it's restaurants, highly competitive industry, and like restaurants to be competitive have to price their food really aggressively, which means that like their overhead has to be minimized as much as possible. And like
all right, hit your next one here.
Covering everyone's bar tab if you make a hole in one playing golf. You know about this?
No, but so I didn't know about this. I would have thought it was the other way around, that somebody buys you drinks when you hit the hole in one. However, I rationalize this into thinking that if you get the hole in one, that there's money coming to you for having done so. That there are bets. There are bets on the hole or whatever, and each player is giving you 10 or 15 or $50 or something, and then because you're the winner of whatever windfall.
Like if you're playing casual golf, you're just playing with your friends, and you're not playing skins or gambling on it or anything else. You're just playing a casual round of golf with your friends. If you hit a hole in one, the tradition is now there's two versions of this. Version one is you buy the drinks for just your playing group, so at most you're out 2 or 3 other people's bar tabs. The other version is that like at the clubhouse bar, if you made the hole in one, you pay for everyone's bar tab. Now, in Japan, this is taken very seriously, and like people that golf regularly, there's hole-in-one insurance that I think goes up to like $10,000 or something. So that way, if you hit a hole in one and you have to pay for like the bar tab or whatever, you can make a claim with the hole in one insurance to cover the bar tab that you had to pay for like everybody in the clubhouse because you made the hole in one.
All right, let's move on. We got O through Y left. Oh, and one of yours, the imperial system. So I remember when we were kids, it felt like the U.S. was gearing up to go metric.
Yeah, we've been gearing to go metric for the last 50 years.
No, I think we just kind of dropped gearing up, and now we're just like, yeah, we're just gonna stick with the imperial system. Fuck that metric shit. Like, you know what? Actually, speaking of metric, I am ordering this thing online. We talked about it a little bit the other week, but I'm having to do these inch conversions to centimeters and millimeters, and I actually decided I was going to kind of draw something out to scale on some wood that I have here. I have 4 tape measures. I don't know how many tape measures you have. I have 4 tape measures, 3 yardsticks, and a whole bunch of other measuring utensils and tools. James, not a single one. And I could have sworn I flipped everything. I flipped the yardsticks over, everything. It has centimeters on it. They have now. I have a ruler here, but I'm needing to go a lot longer than the ruler. I'm needing to go roughly 36 inches wide. None of them have the metric system on them. None of them have centimeters. So I guess
I have 2 tape measures. I think one of them actually has.
You're gonna have to. You have to check tonight after this podcast and let me know. All right, let's hit the next one here.
Homeopathic medicine / traditional medicine.
I mean, that's like one step better than praying away the polio. So
yeah.
Yeah.
You can't pray away the gay. You can't pray away herpes.
The homeopathic medicine. There's an element of it that actually I'm not that far against. Like try the natural remedies first, but also trust the science. Although science is also confusing as fuck for a lot of people these days. So
well, yeah, but you can. That's why you have doctors, is they've studied this shit, so you don't have to.
I'll give you a little bit of earful of doctors 20 seconds after we jump offline. I don't want to bash anybody's profession. Let me hit just a few more because we got 3 minutes left. And then if you want to comment on any of them, you can.
Right, speed run.
Remainder of the list. Elf on a Shelf.
That's new.
Giving kids iPads to keep them content at restaurants.
How about just don't let the kid go to the restaurant?
Covering terrorists and school shooters or just really crazy bad shit in the media.
Copycat stuff.
Yeah, you see copycat stuff when there are suicides reported. The suicide rates go up. Thinking we're a Christian nation and prioritizing Christianity in the U.S. American superiority complex. The food pyramid, and I guess we don't even use the food pyramid anymore. But either way, if you're getting nutrition advice from the government where ketchup is seen as a vegetable, you're already losing. Opening gifts in front of party goers, that's always uncomfortable, and it's also sometimes uncomfortable for the gift givers. Public marriage proposals. I
always like it when they say no.
I didn't see that in any list, but it occurred to me that that's
a good one, and I love it when the person gets rejected.
And then the last one I had here was saving and then eating the placenta. Just fucking disgusting.
Yeah, no, thank you.
That's effectively cannibalism if you're eating someone else's placenta.
Dude, it doesn't matter. Like, it's weird no matter how you stretch it. Let me see. Kevin sent me a message.
But that's the end of the list. I'm curious if there's anything that we missed that we should know about. I want to thank you guys for joining us on the TikTok, the Instagram, the Facebook Live, the YouTube Live, the Twitter Live, and the Twitch feed. Thank you all for joining us. I want to thank Rosh Galeb in the back end who's feeding us your comments on TikTok and Instagram. But don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and all audio podcast platforms. We'd love to see you offline where we can't see that we're seeing you, but you're seeing us. but it's not live. Anything else to add here?
Nope. Stick around. I got a few things to discuss.
All right. Thank you guys for joining. Adios.
All right, you made it this far. This is the far end of the episode. If you made it this far, please subscribe. Please give us a thumbs up. Give us some type of interaction because it helps us. And I promise you, we greatly appreciate it. I will see you next time.
I like PBR. I just got priced out of it.